Hi, this is Nancy, and I'm here with Janine Booth.
Hello.
And we're here to tell you about watercolor paint, its properties, and to show you some of the different painting styles and techniques that you have learned with the program. First off, we're going to take a look at watercolor. Watercolor is a water-based media, which means that you use water to mix up the paint and apply the pigment. Watercolor normally comes in a classroom setting in these little pans. It's fairly inexpensive and it's easy to use. You can also buy watercolor in a liquid form. You can see these little vials here, and this comes already mixed with the water, and it's fairly concentrated, and it's very useful for doing watercolor wash paintings. And finally, artists that you see hanging in galleries and museums tend to use watercolor in the tube, and it comes in a sort of a semi-moist condition, and the artist will squeeze it out onto their palette. You can see here I was squeezing a little bit out, and then they'll use it from that, and it's very highly concentrated, so just a little bit goes a long way. The second thing that's really important to the artist is his brush. The brush really is the artist's friend, and you really want to take care of it. There's really basically two kinds of brushes that you might come across. The first kind is a flat, and the second kind is a round. Brushes can be made from real animal hair like this one is, or they can be made from synthetic, a man-made product like this brush is. And they also come in different sizes. Here's a smaller flat, and here's a smaller round brush. Now, the most important thing that we want to get across to you today is it's very important in your classroom that you take care of your brushes. And Janine will tell you why it's important to take care of your brushes and some of the little tips that she's learned in working with students on how to take care of brushes and help them last a long time.
It's very important to take care of your brush because here they're put together with metal, and if you push down with your brush, it breaks the bristles and they come off in your painting. It's also important to note that brushes are very expensive, and if you don't take care of them, you'll have to replace them very soon, and then you won't be able to paint as much.
I know, and it's really, another thing that happens with brushes if you don't take care of them, sometimes students, I'm going to show you this one, students take and leave them in the water and the tip becomes bent, and once it's bent like this, it just never works well again, and you go to try to paint a nice little point and you get a blob instead. So we really want to take care of our friends, the brushes. Now, we're going to talk about, we remember that we mentioned that it was watercolors have, they're water-based, and we'd like to, and Janine's going to show you in a few seconds here what happens when you apply watercolor on some crayon.
But before we can do that, we need to show you how to use your brush. And so we dip it in the water, there's our water, and we stick it in the paint and we just go 1, 2, 3, and we use the side of the brush so we don't damage our bristles. I'm going to do an extra one just for fun. And then we go across. If you press down with your crayon firmly, you should get a good resistance. There you go. What do you think of that, Nancy?
I think that's a pretty cute little...
You drew bubbles. Secret white bubbles.
I put a little surprise in, and there's the bubbles popping out. So this is a fun technique. It gives you a little waxy line that you can have some control of before you start using the watercolor, and it allows your students and those of you that are students to create details in your picture that it might be difficult to do with just the paint alone. Now, oftentimes people want to use wet paper for their watercolors. It allows the paint to flow easily when you're doing a wash. But when you wet the paper, it curls up. I don't know if I'm just kind of
see it just a little bit.
It's kind of curling up, and that's because the paper fibers are expanding once they have the water on them. A way to cure that is just expand both sides. So if you add water on the other side a little bit, you're not trying to make this a soggy, wet thing. The paper will lay down nicely.
See that.
And now if I wanted to do a wash, I'm going to pick up some color like Janine showed us, Mrs. Booth showed us, and I'm going to wash down. I need a little more water.
Yeah.
if you get that kind of scratchy look, it's because you don't have enough water. You shouldn't have to scrub your paper. If you have enough water, your brush will flow on evenly.
It's also important to continue all the way to the edges if you're doing a sky or something, so you don't get cut lines in your paint. A lot of times this area here will dry, and then you try to add a new layer to get to the edge, and then you end up with funny lines in your painting.
And it looks, yeah.
But that's a nice, look how it's running. That's
I know.
pretty neat.
And then, you know, watercolor has what we call sometimes happy accidents. We can play around with this. Sometimes artists will take and play around and turn it different directions to get it to do these little runs. It looks like
look at that.
I got a water spout developing. It's a tornado.
Oh no!
A very important concept about watercolor is that it's translucent. Those of you that haven't used that word before, it's really a nifty word. It means that light, that's the leuca, goes through. So the light shows through the watercolor.
It's like see-through almost.
It's like see-through almost. It's not as see-through as like a glass window, but it's like a filmy, fancy dress or something. And the important thing about this is that you can't paint light colors and have them be totally that color on top of a darker color. The darker color is going to show through. So I'm going to take that little wash thing that I had from before, and I'm going to put this on here and make a...
You made green.
And I do, and that's because when the blue shows through, it becomes green. It also picks up some of that green too. Down here you could probably put some light on, but even then you can see those shadows of the blue underneath. And that's oftentimes a mistake that people make, is they think, well, I'll just paint another color on top of it. You can paint another color on top, but the other color needs to be darker. So if I want to take purple, for example, see, that's going to get over the lighter color. It
doesn't show through at all anymore.
So that's something that's very important to remember about watercolors, that watercolors are translucent or transparent.
That's one of the nice things about the watercolor, the resist with the crayon, is that you can keep your colors separate.
Right.
And you don't have problems with them bleeding into each other.
Right. So anyway, or sometimes you want it to bleed together. You know,
That's
sometimes
true.
when you experiment around, maybe you want to make some green trees and you want to put some yellow on that blue, and you want that green to appear because it's going to be leaves. So now we're going to move on to color in just a second. Now we're going to take a look at the color wheel and color, and how you can use color to express moods or ideas in your paintings by understanding color relationships and how to mix colors and how to think about color. So let's take a look at our three primary colors. The primary colors are called that because they're like the boss colors. They're numero uno, and they're the colors from which all other colors are made: blue, yellow, and red. Now, you see that Janine, when she painted these, made these in a circular shape. She made them like our color wheel. Now, our color wheel, you might think that this is sort of an arbitrary placement, or it looks pretty, or
It kind of goes in a rainbow.
Or it kind of goes in a rainbow, and that's not an accident either. But let's take a look and find our friends, the primary colors. Your teacher will have this for you if you're going to be doing this, so you can color right along with us, paint along with us. We have red, blue, and yellow in the triangles. Those are the primary colors. So if you're painting, just go ahead and paint those right now. In the triangles, the red, blue, and yellow. If you're painting along with us, then you might want to pause the video for a few seconds. Then you'll notice there's three circles. The three circles are the secondary colors. That's because you take a primary color, a number one color, and you add it to another number one color. 1 plus 1 equals 2, or secondary. So we have the secondary colors. Let's review those. Red plus blue
Makes purple. Yellow plus blue makes green.
And red
plus yellow makes orange.
Orange. Whoops, there we go. I'm pointing at the wrong thing. Now, Janine was wondering, what were you wondering when you looked at this, Janine?
I can't. Oh, why were there so many shapes on this wheel?
And the reason there's so many shapes is there's lots and lots of colors in between these main colors, and these colors that are in between are called intermediate or sometimes called tertiary.
I almost forgot what I was wondering.
I know, and she was bugging me earlier about this, and now she forgets why she was bugging me.
Yeah.
Now, take a look at this. We've got yellow plus orange gives us yellow-orange. Orange plus red gives us
Red-orange.
red-orange, and on around. And what's important with this is sometimes people are really crabby. I got a small pan of paint. I don't get lots of colors. Well, that's not true, is it?
No, you can mix many colors from just those few on the
In the
palette.
Yeah. Now, Janine's going to show you here how you can mix those intermediate colors. When you mix blue and green, you get
a blue-green, which is perfect for the ocean.
for the ocean or a tropical scene or.
Ooh, I want to go on a tropical vacation now.
I know, except I'd like to go to tropical vacation to the Arctic. It's too hot. Now, if you mix green and yellow, you're going to get.
I would get a yellow-green.
And boys and girls, I want you on your way home today to look at trees as you walk home. This may sound like a funny homework assignment, but I want you to take a look at the trees and notice how many different colors of green you can find as you walk home. And understanding that you can make lots and lots of different colors of green by mixing yellow and blue will help you make more realistic looking scenes and more realistic foliage for your plants.
I think we made a beautiful color wheel.
I think we did. You're so talented. Now, I want to show you some things with this color wheel that's really important to know. The color wheel can be divided in half, and basically it runs along, kind of along through here.
At a diagonal?
At a diagonal, and divides the color wheel into two halves.
Oh,
One
I see.
half makes us think of things like fresh green grass or cool water or an icy snowy scene that's kind of blue tinge to it. This side is usually called the cool colors. Over here we've got yellows and oranges and reds, and what does that make you think of?
Summer.
Summer, warm, or fire,
Fire.
chili peppers, all sorts of hot, fiery things. And this concept of warm and cool colors is very, very strong. In fact, you can suggest things to people just by using warm and cool colors. Now, another really important thing, let's go back to that little fish that you had me color with the orange, and you said use orange. Why?
Because the brighter colors really create good contrast. If you use a pink or something, it'll still create a color resist, but it won't stand out like this. It'll be hidden in the blue.
And another reason it stands out is because, look at this, blue and orange are opposites on the color wheel. They're directly opposite each other, and that makes them complementary colors. And complementary colors, when they're placed next to each other, intensify each other and they make each other pop out. Now, here's a little trick. Watch this, guys. But if I take my complementary colors and I mix them together, so I'm going to get some orange and I'm going to just plop on some blue into it, you can see that what I get is not a bright color at all.
It's a mess.
It's a dull gray color. Now, this might be useful. In fact, if I add more orange to it, it will get even more
Looks like an ocean.
brown, kind of gray colors. But this can be really useful if I wanted to paint a foggy day or a nighttime scene or a rainy day where the clouds are dark and ominous. I might want to mix a little orange into my blue to make these duller, kind of mysterious colors.
It would also be good under the ocean.
And
Where
yeah.
it's dark, not much light under there.
Now we're going to move on into lesson 1, where we're going to introduce the concept of line and how you can think about line when you go to create your pictures. And we're going to also review back into color, because we're going to be painting, or not we, Janine is going to be painting a sunrise or sunset, and we're going to look at wet on wet washes. So first, let's talk about line.
Okay, line comes in various forms. We have a straight line. It's as straight as I can humanly do without a ruler. And then we have curved lines, and we have irregular lines.
And irregular lines are more like we find in nature. We don't find rectangular hills or triangular hills. We find irregular hills. How do you show that to your students?
I take my kids outside and we go out and we look at where the sky meets the land, and we trace with our finger along the edge of the sky, and we notice that it goes all over the place, even around trees. I don't have one here, but I could do this. And I find where the trees go and meet the sky.
Meet the sky, because boys and girls, oftentimes you think about that the sky is above your head, and so you paint a blue sky up here and you paint the ground down here, and you forget that there's really sky in between. So when you walk home today from school, notice that. Notice how the sky comes all the way
Touches the
down.
earth.
It touches the earth. So, and let's review again the kinds of lines. They're straight lines, they're curved lines, they're diagonal lines. It goes
Oh, I
this
didn't
way,
do that.
horizontal, vertical lines, there's fat lines, and there's
Thin lines.
thin lines. So now let's also take a look at, she's going to do a sunset. So let's watch Janine paint a sunset.
Okay, well first we have to decide where we want our sun to be peeking out from. Sunset, do we have the sun in the picture, or is it hiding behind the hill?
Whichever you want.
Whichever I want. What would
Depends
you
how-
like, Nancy? I'd like to make you happy.
You can make the sun just have slipped behind that little peak.
Okay, well we'll see what we can do. If we're going to do that, then I'd like to do a little crayon resist. Which peak? On the right side or the
See?
left side?
Oh, left side.
Right here?
Yeah, that's good.
Just a little bit of sun.
Yeah, just peeking
Just a
out.
little
It's
bit
just
of
slipped
sun.
down behind the thing. Notice that's some good words. You know, the sun slips behind the mountain.
There it
We did
is.
these little active verbs.
Okay, what I like to do is I like to take and do just a very tiny yellow line along, ooh, that's not very tiny, is it? Along the edge of the mountains, because the sun is glowing behind these mountains. It's just barely behind, and it's hiding. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit. Would you like a reddish sunset, or would you like a more yellowy, orangey sunset?
I like the yellowy orange.
Do you? Okay, let's play with that. I need to turn my paper upside down, though, because I find it easier to paint a sky when it's upside down. There we go, upside down. Okay. All right, here we go. I'm going to add a little bit of orange, but I got a little bit too much, didn't I? Take a little water.
Now, some people will wet the paper ahead of time. You notice that Janine kind of uses a really wet brush, and she kind of wets it with her wet brush. You can take your sponge and wet your paper ahead of time. This is kind of a little personal choice, and you
I
can
like-
try.
yeah.
She likes the little bit of control of wetting it using the brush. And notice how she's kind of, we're going to use the real technical term here, she's mushing it around really nicely.
I'm mushing.
And so that remember when she talked about the blue wash and how we would get lines, how it would dry and create these sort of backwash lines. And by filling the space with the water and what she's done here, she's eliminated that problem. Notice how the yellow is diffusing or blending up into that orange. Now she's going to add
A little bit of magenta or red violet. I think that was on the color wheel, actually.
as one of our intermediate colors.
And it's a little different painting for you today, so I'm doing the best I can. But I might make a happy accident.
Okay.
So, here we go. Oops. There we go. Can't see. Did
Now
I-
let's turn around and see what we have.
Okay.
Let's take a look. And
Oh, that
there-
doesn't look so bad when you put it right side up, does it?
And so there's our sunset, and our sun is fading away. And tonight,
I'm gonna
another
add-
homework assignment, go outside and watch the sunset and watch how the colors in the sky change as the sun sinks or hides or goes behind,
Takes a nap.
takes a nap.
I'm going to add a few little white clouds. And because my paper is wet, it should flow. And all I have to really put is just a little line. And then it'll spread.
Or you could take tissue paper and suck it up with the tissue paper
Yeah.
too.
But you know what I like to do? I like to tilt my paper. Remember when we were
Oh,
doing
yeah.
this to start with and we were tilting the paper everywhere, making our viewers kind of crazy?
Yep,
Um,
here we are, making you crazy again, guys.
The white is a little bright now, but as the paint dries, it'll all kind of blend in and really become more muted. Let me try just a bit more water.
Okay.
Think that looks all right for our sky?
Yep. So
Okay,
there we go. So let's review what we did in lesson 1. We took a look at the different kinds of line. We went outside and we observed that in nature you're not going to find hard edge rectangles and triangles, but you're going to find curved, natural, sort of irregular lines. Then we observed that when the sun sets, the clouds are tinged with different colors and they seem to blend together.
Very much so.
And you can make that blending with using wet on wet. You can wet your paper ahead of time, or you can use your brush to wet it as you go.
My way.
Your way. Well, in lesson 2, we're going to look at 2 new concepts, 2 new elements of art. We're going to look at shape and at value. And in doing that, we're going to take a look at a cityscape or your neighborhood. In Janine's cityscape, you're going to notice that she used a lot of shapes. And maybe some of you can identify some of those shapes. What do you see here?
I have a rectangle and a triangle
and a little triangle
and a circle.
And so she has a lot of the different basic shapes, and those put together make a really nice cityscape or city skyline. Now it's a nighttime scene, and so Janine wants contrast. And so she's getting contrast by coloring in lighter colors with her crayon that's going to resist, and then she's going to add a darker color. So let's join now and watch her as she finishes her nighttime picture.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm coloring over my straight lines with a crayon to make a definition between the sky and the building, because I certainly don't want my sky to bleed into my building, or vice versa, have a big red blob in my sky, or some other color I choose to paint with.